Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Podcast. This is a place where driven, determined coaches learn how to get off the business growth struggle bus and learn how to build a wildly profitable online coaching business. I'm your host, Allison Henderson, corporate dropout to six-figure social media business coach. I'm going to show you how I've been able to create the business of my dreams organically, all through utilizing my social media platforms. So pull up a seat, take some notes, and get ready to see your life and bank account transform. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Kristin Revere. She is the owner and founder of Gold Coast Doulas in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She is an elite certified birth doula, a newborn care specialist, a childbirth educator, and an elite certified postpartum doula. She is the co-author of Supported Your Guide to Birth and Baby, and she is the host of Ask the Doulas. She is a mom of two and a bonus mom to one. Everyone, welcome Kristin to the show. Hi, Kristin.
Hi, Allison. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah. So I always like to start my episodes when I have interviews, just share a little bit about you. Who are you and how did you get started in the business?
Sure. So I am a mom of two and bonus mom to one. And I have a background. I never imagined that I would own a doula agency or be a doula and childbirth educator myself. But my personal story and experiences in birth and the postnatal phase are what drew me into the work. But my background is actually in public relations and communications. I worked in ad sales, you name it.
I was like, we have a really similar background.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not typical in our industry to have that kind of background, but certainly for both of us, it's beneficial to have that business background and understand marketing and communications. So I had kids later in life. So advanced maternal age was definitely part of my chart. And was working on a governor's race with my first pregnancy with my daughter, traveling the state, fundraising. And I assumed that as a type A personality and planner that I could plan my way to like the perfect pregnancy and birth. And it was. I did all the things, like took the classes and took Lamaze and breastfeeding and switched providers and advocated for myself, and even switched hospitals early in pregnancy and didn't know what doulas were with my first, but hired doulas with my second. But with my first, I developed preeclampsia at 37 weeks, was on bed rest, and an induction, of course, was brought up. And so my plans for having an unmedicated birth, spontaneous labor, all went out the window. And fortunately, I had very few interventions, didn't have any pain management. So it went as perfectly as it could have. But my daughter was in the NICU for 4 days with glucose and birth weight issues. And so with the breastfeeding preparation that I did, I was basically needing to pump, and she had enhanced formula. And so once I went home without my daughter. So all of, again, the things that your friends tell you and you plan for changed. And I realized that it was really important to advocate for women's health. And I ended up helping to start a rally in my community and had elected officials come and speak. And I met doulas. And so my kids are 21 months apart. And by the time I was pregnant with my son, the first call I made was to doulas that I met at that rally. And so I knew that I wanted to try to avoid preeclampsia and wanted to get all of the best birth and baby experts assembled for my dream team. And so saw a chiropractor all again, saw a naturopath, and made sure that I was not depleted in any minerals, vitamins, and really focused on my health and the emotions surrounding potentially getting preeclampsia again. So during that pregnancy, I discovered a book called Sacred Pregnancy, and they had a retreat in multiple states. I signed up for it and brought the 8-week women focused classes to my community. So my first class was, I was promoting it and marketing it. When I was in the postnatal time with my son. And so long story short, my students wanted me to be their doula. And I didn't imagine loving the work and being in hospitals. But I decided to go to Florida and take a doula training. So brought my whole family with me and fell in love with it. I decided to take a client to see what it was like, and it was amazing. So yeah, that is my path to doula work. And I had full-time jobs for the first almost 5 years of my doula career. Worked in a nonprofit women's business center, a political communications firm, and while building my personal practice and then the agency that I started in Gold Coast is now coming on 11 years in business and a full service doula agency. We have everything from overnight newborn care specialists, postpartum doulas, sleep consultants, childbirth educators, and of course, birth doulas. And we have multiple IBCLCs and certified lactation consultants on the team as well. So I built the agency that I wish existed for my own children.
Wow. So 11 years in business. And obviously even before that, you sound like a hustler. Like you said that you were did you actually run for governor, or were you helping somebody run for governor?
I was working as a fundraiser on a governor's race.
I say like
during my pregnancy.
Yeah. Even like, I'm like, oh my gosh, even that to me was like, that's so in my mind, I don't know, so much work. And then, yeah, just overall, just still having these jobs and, I don't know. Did you always kind of have that mentality of like, I'm just somebody who gets stuff done. Like I have a dream and I'm going to go for it.
I am definitely an overachiever and like to be busy. And so my father and stepmother are entrepreneurs, even in their semi-retirement stages. So I've seen businesses get built from idea stage to, execution. And so I didn't necessarily dream of being an entrepreneur when I was young, but I also was exposed to it and not afraid of the hustle and the ups and downs that come with owning your own business.
Yeah. Now, I know life probably looks a lot different now that your kids are older, but I know a lot of women who are listening probably have like little kids running around and, they're trying to start their businesses. Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah. So again, my kids were little when I started doula work, and, surrounding yourself by people who support your dream and, hiring, whether it's childcare or having a doula in your home so you can work if you're immediately postpartum. And I don't have employees, but I have plenty of virtual assistants, and my doulas are all contractors. So they own their own businesses and take work with me when they want, and then also do work on their own. So I certainly believe that you should hire for things that you're not necessarily, in that zone of genius. So for me, having an accountant and a bookkeeper was crucial, even from day one of the agency, knowing that we needed to set up systems and pay doulas on time and track all of the different accounts. And so accounting was certainly one of the bigger initial investments in my business.
Yeah, that's one thing I do not I always am like messaging, emailing back and forth with my account. I'm like, am I good? I had 1 year where I owed a ton of taxes and I'm like, I never want to do that again, which I mean, so I feel like we all make one of those little hiccups or mistakes in our businesses at some point, but I was like, I never want to do this again. So I totally feel you on the accountant and having a bookkeeper and all that stuff.
Yes. And I also have a complicated website and I'm always afraid of crashing it. So I have a web host and a website team that can handle all of the little hiccups with updates.
I know that you said earlier, you're located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but you serve a lot of Michigan. It's not just that little, I don't want to say little city, but it's a big city. But like, explain to me how that works. Like, how do you manage people that are miles away?
Yes. So deciding my core focus is getting families rest. So that does include virtual sleep consulting. We can work with someone in Florida, in other countries, and with the overnight support being the focus. I have contractors all up and down Lake Michigan. So Southwest Michigan cities, a big presence in Northern Michigan, and then of course, West Michigan. And then some of the doulas that are contracted for me are willing to travel up to about 2 hours for, the longer term clients that have longer shifts. And so, yeah, so having that need with clients calling me from areas for many years that I didn't serve before really going into territories that were a bit different from the Grand Rapids mindset. I mean, Southwest Michigan is much different than Traverse City, for example. And so really having the doulas who live there do some of the networking and make connections. And of course, I pay them for doing any of that local work that I can't do, having a larger footprint for the agency than when we initially started.
So tell me like your mentality, because I feel like a lot of women are afraid to have the employees, or like I know that you say they're like contractors and they kind of have their own businesses, but like give me like I guess an easy way for you to like, how do you stay on top of all this? Like you have all these people from like pretty much all over the country that I guess would possibly need your services, right? Like how do you manage all that?
Letting people who are better than me at certain tasks take over. So one of my postpartum doulas does my scheduling because she's very detail oriented. She's great with the team. So not only does she have firsthand client experience and has been with me over 8 years, but she also is very detail oriented, great with customer support. If anything comes up with illness or emergency and a postpartum shift needs to be rescheduled. So again, looking at, I can't do all of the things, but I'm great at relationship building, community relations, marketing, and do a lot of speaking engagements. Of course, have the Ask the Doulas podcast. And so I try to do some things that light me up, but also am good at, figuring out what the priorities are for the year. My business runs on EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. The book Traction by Gino Wickman is the basis of EOS. And so that really helps with my marketing VA, my scheduler, my accountant, everyone who, even the vendors that I work with, we're all on the same page. And each quarter is broken out. So I have different objectives and goals and am able to be efficient with my meetings and budgeting, certainly.
Yeah. What do you feel like maybe even going into the next quarter or this quarter, like what is your biggest goal right now?
So expanding the team. So we're navigating very common occurrence in this field is doulas love having babies. And so I'm navigating maternity leaves and some moves out of state And so my goal this quarter is to bring on more doulas and another sleep consultant and fill some of the empty education roles in the team from some moves that we are navigating.
Nice. Now, if you can go back to yourself, say 10 years ago when you're first really getting this started, what do you feel was your, I don't want to say main focus, but when it came to sales and marketing, what did you feel really accelerated the success for you?
Oh, great question, Allison. I would say, understanding how to speak to parents, having been there myself, having hired doulas, didn't hire a sleep consultant, but I probably should have. But yeah, so knowing pain points, knowing for all of the years that I worked in advertising sales, from radio to Yellow Pages to magazine, how to speak to your target audience, your target customer, and then creating some, fun in our opening. So we did a tour. I had a former business partner at the time of my launch. I'm now the sole owner, but she's a former labor and delivery nurse and hypnobirthing educator. And we planned a tour of every city that we served. And, it had coffee shop events, bed and breakfast events, invited the media and the community, because I was used to holding events, especially as a fundraiser, and creating some media awareness and attention. So I used some of those skills from other careers that I've had and translated it into the doula world.
I love this so much because I think a lot of women they're afraid to make those connections. They're afraid to just drop off the business cards or really come in and say, can I do an event here or something like that? What kind of advice would you give that woman right now who's like, I'm afraid to really network and really put myself out there?
So look at how you can partner versus feeling like you are asking for a favor. And businesses are struggling right now. So thinking of that bakery in one of the towns that I had an open house in, I was purchasing baked goods and knowing that we were going to fill a couple of tables, that it was bringing business into them. So, with the bed and breakfast, it was a connection of my former business partner and wanting to, promote that in the press release and in ads that we did and bring people in, certainly helps. And if you're partnering with related professionals, like say a mental health therapist, then what would help bring them patients and awareness? And could you do an Instagram live together or have a talk, like a free community discussion and, help each other out versus you feeling like your request is going to put someone out.
Yeah, I love that. It's like you're not taking anything from somebody. You're actually giving them so much, if you can view it that way. It's like there's so much more to gain than lose by making that connection or setting up that partnership. Okay, so I'd love for you to go back a little bit because I know you mentioned Instagram. You've done a lot of in-person stuff. What do you feel is working right now in the online space or even locally? Because I know a lot of women listening to this, whether you're a coach, sleep consultant, doula, they want to do both. It's not just social media or just Google ads or whatever. It's, I need to kind of have my, eggs in a lot of different baskets possibly for marketing. What would you say is kind of working for you right now or just overall as you're seeing in the business space?
So whenever I can get in front of the community and my ideal clients, I will. So I helped bring a baby expo to my market in Grand Rapids. And so, being able to partner and be the the base for an expo that is based out of another state was important to me. And I don't have time to have weekly support groups the way I used to in my early days of the agency when I was building small. But if you're brand new, you could have a postpartum support group and even involve a mental health therapist during the pandemic when things slowed down for us. I held a fertility support group online and partnered with a mental health therapist. And we were able to support families who were in the middle of treatment and everything shut down and got halted. They had a lot of emotions surrounding their fertility, status. And so whatever I can do to get in front of people, because right now with social media, even if you're buying ads, it's like you're not necessarily reaching people. So what can you do to partner with local professionals? For me, it is part of giving back to the community. And so I've held the diaper drive for the
I
last
love
10
that
plus
idea.
years.
Wow. Okay. I love that. Cool. Keep going.
Yeah. And
I know you're full of
partner
knowledge.
with pediatricians, offices, and a chiropractor, a pelvic floor physical therapist who has like 10 offices that partner with me. So for a month, during the anniversary of my business, and it also coincides with National Diaper Needs Awareness Week, we collect diapers. And there's a group of mental health therapists that are also partnering baby stores. And that really is a way to help our clients who have those leftover diapers, because you can donate individual, obviously like boxes of new diapers, but those open ones that just go to waste, or cloth can be recycled, and wipes can be donated. So even if money is tight, knowing that you can make a difference collectively. And so finding a cause that makes sense for your business and partnering with other professionals can create collaboration in a way that, just doing a one-time event would not.
Mm. I know a lot of women probably have that fear of like, God, hosting an event like a baby expo, for example, right? Like that seems like a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of work. Like I know from my own experience, like helping people with events, because many moons ago, I was an event coordinator and helped a lot with that. Like I know there's a lot of moving parts. But I know a lot of women would love to do this. Like they maybe live in a small town, the diaper, doing a diaper party or a diaper, anything. Like I think that is just so, it could really help them just get their name out there, but also do something that they truly are just, because a lot of women, this, are heartfelt, like entrepreneurs. Like they, in their heart, really want to help people. And so I think having some of these, but like they have this fear of, God, putting on an expo that seems like either maybe a lot of money or just a lot of effort on their end. Like, what do you feel like would be a first step for them?
Yeah. So if there's an expo that you want to bring to your community, like 9 In, 9 Out is the expo that I recruited from Wisconsin to come to Michigan, because I knew I didn't have it in me to organize my own baby expo, but I wanted one to replace an expo that was only here for a year. And so, yeah, you don't have to necessarily start from scratch, but you can find a way to build slowly, like even looking at a yoga studio and having a Mother's Day themed event there could work out without all of the overhead and year-long planning for a big birth and baby event. There was a baby store in my early days of the business that I partnered with, and we had a baby shower event there. And so I did a giveaway of doula services and was there networking, had swag bags, and I had inserts in there. So there are so many different things you can do in a small way that can still bring impact.
I love all these ideas. I think people are really listening to this and going, I can do this. I can do this. It's going to take some guts, some courage, and yes, time and effort, and of course, but like, I think people need to hear the truth of like, in order to build your business, yes, you're going to have to do things that I would say normal, just regular people aren't doing. So I know like at this point, you've been doing your business for so many years and you probably, I don't want to say maybe have lost some of the kind of new, like I'm new, like I'm not, because you're not new anymore. You're like, a seasoned vet here. What do you think has changed for you from like year 1 now to now year 11, like mentally?
Well, so much in the industry has changed, whether it's sleep consulting, postpartum doulas, birth doulas, educators. Because when I started, there was still that confusion between the role of a midwife and a birth doula. People didn't know what postpartum doulas were. They may have read a sleep book, but it was one sleep method versus being comprehensive and individualized for a family. So when I started Gold Coast, I brought a postpartum doula trainer to my area, and we were the first overall agency, but the first to really focus on postpartum support in my area of Michigan. And so once I had the doulas trained and ready to go, and I was trained as a postpartum doula myself, people didn't know what the service was. So I needed to do so much education around that role and did lunch and learns with pediatrician offices and did so much more work than I would have to do now if I started the business, just because the industry's changed. And there are benefit programs that cover doulas, both birth and postpartum. And HSAs and FSAs cover doula support. And then now Medicaid covers birth doulas in some states. And so thinking about all of the changes in the industry and awareness, and I feel like doulas are having their moment right now. And it would have been so much easier when I started my business to be able to already have that awareness in the profession that didn't exist when I started as a doula 13 years ago, or when I launched my business coming on 11 years ago.
Wow. All right. So this might be a hard question, but I'm sure you've had a failure or two in the 11 years that you've had your business. Like, what has been one story that you're like, I wish I can tell all entrepreneurs this so that they don't make the same mistake I did?
Ooh, I mean, so many failures. And I feel like
I just like we need to hear some, because every so often you see like the really successful entrepreneur where you're like, they've never failed. And it's like, no, we all have. We've all had some things happen in our, decade of being an entrepreneur. And it's like, sometimes we gotta, I don't want to say normalize it, but just say, hey, we've all been there. And this is how I got through it.
Yeah. So for me, my former business partner, we had our own businesses and spent 6 months on the back end of having that really fancy launch and the website reveal. And we honestly should have launched earlier and a little rougher. Like, I feel like when I am consulting other doulas and they want to start either a private practice or a collective or agency, I tell them that you can start a little rough. Things don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the fancy rat cards, and you can just take a little time and build once you have those first few clients versus investing all of the money in, the marketing materials, the office space, and find ways to, there are co-working spaces now that didn't exist in my community when I launched the business. So thinking about how you can keep your overhead low and start small versus having everything be like one big splash at launch.
Yeah, I'm all about taking messy action. Like, one of my past clients, she's like, I'm waiting for my website to get done. I'm like, don't, just go on the internet and start talking about your services. Like, yes, your website's great and all, like, and I want you to have that. But like right now, like you can start today getting on calls with people. I think a lot of people wait until, I'll wait till this is finished, or I'll wait until this is done. I'm like, no, you can start today.
Exactly. So launch a little rough and then tweak based on feedback. And I have an example during the pandemic when we were still fortunate to be working in hospitals. And so the birth end of the business was still booming, but people were uncomfortable having a doula in their home during COVID. So the postpartum end of our business slowed way down. So my former business partner and I decided to create an online course, and we launched pretty rough, and I thought it was the best thing. So we had 3 live launches, did surveys, focus groups, got a lot of feedback before we did the more polished videos for the evergreen launch. So we got that feedback, had lower prices for the early students in the course, and then we're able to hire a videographer later and get the professional photos done. But, there are so many ways with online courses and programs that you can get that feedback and do those live launches before investing in the fancy, platforms and so on.
Let's talk about your personal life. So how do you manage? Like, how do you balance it all? Like, I'm assuming you're working. I don't want to say you work a lot because I actually don't know. Like, what is your day-to-day like?
Well, I'm always working, but that's part of my nature. Even on vacation, I'll work for a couple hours in the morning when my family's sleeping. And my husband, we try to divide and conquer with household tasks and kids and sports. But I would say that I could do a little bit better in work-life balance. But
you love it.
Yeah, even when I was working in corporate America and for other, companies, I was always working on weekends and bringing work home. It's just who I am. But I am trying to carve out intentional time on my calendar to go for walks with friends and, get fitness to be part of the calendar. So I'm not responding to all of the emails and emergencies in the business, even, on vacation. So I try to just block out time and be as efficient as possible.
Mm-hmm. So any last words of wisdom for my audience today?
Don't be intimidated by making connections, and think about how you can partner with others to build your coaching practice, or if you're a sleep consultant or a doula, just look at it as a collaboration and a partnership versus something that terrifies you. Even with, when I used to go into pediatrician and OB and midwife offices for lunch and learns, I'm helping to educate their patients on options and, helping them to understand how we can help their practice and their patients. And so, in my early days, going into physician offices were not my favorite, thing. And so it was intimidating to knowing how busy many professionals in the medical industry are and how the time window is short. So practicing and, lunch is always appealing. You have to eat. So
yeah. How did you set those up? Were you just, I'm sending off some emails, I'm calling their office, I'm walking in. Like, I think people get so hung up on like, well, how do I set up the lunch and learn? I want to do those, but how do I do it?
So with the first few lunch and learns, I actually went around. We have a big women's expo in my city, and some physician offices had booths. And rather than vend, we went on the opening day of the Women's Expo and had our cards handy and talked to the teams. So Again, whether it's a big chiropractic office or a physical therapist or certainly a pediatric office, we would get the contacts, follow up a week later once things have settled down from their expo. And I made those connections. And then even my own pediatrician, I had a meeting with that office and my own nurse midwife and OB practice that I worked with, and just letting them know that my business was new in the community and that I would love to meet with their practice. And there's a big OB firm in my area that I got to know the office manager and, really connected with her by phone and then email, and suggested that we do a breakfast. So instead of a lunch and learn, a meeting with the staff, and the nurses were there, the admin staff, no physicians, but we were able to have a Q&A, answer questions on everything from what is a birth doula to what does a sleep consultant do? And, what can our lactation consultants offer their patients? And it was so helpful to have that relationship. And we continued with that Q&A and just brought in breakfast for the team. So there is some, budget involved most of the time, but you can also ask someone to coffee and buy them coffee, or, meet at an event that they happen to be vending or attending, and get a card and follow up, track, create a spreadsheet and track when you reached out, what the result was. And a no once might be a yes later on. So it could be no, not now, but maybe a year from now, or there could be another way to collaborate that comes up. If you do some sort of big give back event and want a partner or want to collaborate on a Mother's Day giveaway, for example, then you could see if this baby store wants to give away a swaddle, for example.
I love that idea. Yeah, Mother's Day is coming up clearly soon, which is crazy. But yeah, even like a summer for us is coming up here in the States. Just a summer mom basket or something kind of fun. Who knows? But yeah, I love all these ideas. Thank you so much for sharing everything and just sharing your wisdom, and just obviously being just an entrepreneur who gets it and is understanding of it takes a lot of effort and work, but you still do it messy, do it rough, but just start, just do it. So I really appreciate
People want to help you succeed, but you're not going to get a yes unless you ask. And again, you might get a couple no's, but they could be yeses later on.
Yeah. That actually happened to me recently. I was talking with somebody about being on my podcast, and it was like, oh, I just had a baby, so no. And I was like, oh, okay. And like, I went back through our conversations, and we kept in touch. But at some point I was like, hey, I want to ask you again. She's like, oh my God, I'd love to do it now that I have like time and like my baby isn't a newborn anymore, And it's like, so yeah, it can definitely happen. So anyway, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your wisdom with the world. And yeah, I will hopefully have you back on again, because I feel like there's so much more that we can talk about. So thank you.
I would love that. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Coach podcast today. A couple favors before you go. If you found this episode helpful, please take a screenshot and share it on Instagram. Most importantly, don't forget to tag me at Allison Henderson _coach. That's ALLISON Henderson_coach. And lastly, please take a minute to rate this episode and leave a raving review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Okay, ambition is great, but it's time to get to work. Take action and commit to being 1% better every day. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again next week.